So everybody's into the technology loop, but me, which is fine. So if we're looking at the first picture, I just want to welcome you all to the first program of Delta Links. And towards the end of the program, I assume most of you know about that and why you're on the call, but we'll talk more about that at the end. So it sounds like all of you have introduced yourself while we've been dealing with the Spectrum cable dropout of internet. Is that true, that you've all had a chance to
We haven't actually
check in with each other?
Oh, so some of us have just been chatting and people have put their names and renamed themselves in their boxes.
All right, so how many people do we have on the group?
We have 16 people present right now.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe because we've got such a late start with the technology, I'll just sort of jump in and introduce myself. I'm Judy Fox. I'm the class of 72, so one of the old timers on the call. And I'm also the House Corporation president. So some of you may know me from that role. But my real life job is basically a retired clinical social worker and a semi-retired business consultant. So when I started at Cornell, I started as a textile chemistry major and got intimidated by organic, and so then switched to human development and family studies. When I graduated in 1972, the job market was probably almost as dismal as it was for maybe the class of 2009 and, you know, the uncertainty of this market. So if in doubt, I went on to graduate school and became a full-time MSW student. And my second year in field placement, second year in graduate school, I started working full-time and going to school full-time, and work with emotionally disturbed adolescent boys mostly. Then went on to teach social work at Oswego State for several years. And then I moved into sort of executive management, CEO positions. We called them back then executive directors of several nonprofits. Then went into full-time clinical practice and a lot of agency consulting, program development. And sort of my last consulting role before I went into full-time business consulting was working with the Syracuse University Athletic Department on performance. So part of what I'm bringing you to today, this evening, is sort of the culmination of all those different roles and experiences and the challenges of coping with the changes in my own life and the changes that my clients have taught me about. Carl Rogers was very well known in the 50s, and one of his big issues was if you work with people, it's a privilege that they share their life experiences with you, and the importance of respecting that. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about today really comes from what others have helped me to learn about myself and about what was helpful to them. So I think about life as being a marathon, and particularly having worked with athletes, you understand how important preparation is for everything they do. So I think about life as being a marathon and the need to begin to have a set of skills that will help you cope with whatever those changes are. So if you move to the next slide, Debbie, so we want to look at the preparing for life transitions. And so I just have a list of things that probably most of you have already experienced. Obviously, birth is one of the bigger beginning life transitions, kindergarten, going up to college, and think about the people in your life system. All of these changes that you might have experienced and will experience are also impacting the people around you. So it's a change in the system in one place makes a change in the system someplace else. So you already all have quite a bit of life experience preparing for life transitions. So if we look at the next slide, what we're really talking about is preparing for change, and change is really inevitably part of what stress is. You know, this is really hard to do, not seeing any people's reaction. So I apologize for the inconveniences. So if people are seeing something and saying something that that they need to give me feedback. This is one of the reasons I don't do never did psychotherapy over the telephone, because I don't get any sense about reaction or connection. So, but what we're really talking about is managing stress. So stress is what you experience, or I experienced about 10 minutes ago when the internet went out, when I was trying to practice my technology to get the PowerPoint up and running. So stress is what happens when there's a change, and it's either a physical, something you feel physically, something you feel emotionally, or something you feel psychologically. Those changes are seen or unseen. In this case, it was very clearly seen and triggered a reaction within me. But one of the more important things about stress and change is you experience reactions, whether it's a desired change or an undesired change. I think most of us think if something is changing in the direction in which we would like to go, then that's sort of a stress-free experience. But that's not necessarily true. So I think one of the other important concepts in thinking about that is understanding what I call the rules of a system. A system is designed to maintain the status quo. And if you're a biology major or took biology, there was probably a whole unit on how the body maintains the homeostasis. But my apologies to anyone who's a biology major, because I've really sort of simplified this to the rule is to maintain the status quo. That's rule number one. And rule number two is to find a new balance. So when things change and your body experiences that, it will attempt to maintain the status quo. And then if it can't, it will work to find a new balance. So that leads for me to the concept of evolution or revolution. So that if you're seeking to make changes in your life, they're easier to maintain if you make evolutionary changes, because there's less reactivity and it's easier to find that new balance. Does that make any sense? And but there are times when you need to make drastic changes. That's what I call revolution. And then you have to deal with what the systemic reactivity, the attempt to maintain rule number one. So the evolution allows you to manage the stress, the upheaval, whether it's internal in your system, fighting off an infection, or whether it's some other external activity. Then rule number two comes into place. One of the other important things about that rule number one and rule number two is if you're the change agent, you're working in maybe a student committee and you don't really like the direction it's going. Nobody really does either. So you take the initiative to take the lead. Even though everyone else has sort of asked for that, you will sometimes get what I call systemic reactivity to that, which is the resistance to a change. which is normal, which should signal I've made a change, I'm doing something different. By not being thrown off course by that, then it's easier for the group to settle in on rule number 2, find a new balance. So a slight digression into understanding the stress is part of a natural change process, but there's also natural consequences to it, which is the tendency to try and maintain the current status quo rather than to find that new balance point. So if we look at the next slide, which is the key to coping and adapting to all of those things we just talked about.
And actually, Judy, if you don't mind, we have some awesome answers to the question that you asked us to pose in the chat, which is what's most stressful for you? What's the life transition that's been the most intriguing and challenging for you? And so some of the alums have said moving, and some of the undergrads have said a parent's deployment. Another alum said a job search, getting the vaccine, job search, unpredictability. Somebody else said unpredictability, job search and career trajectory, and building a house. So just to give you some real life examples that people might be coping.
Okay. All right. So obviously the vaccine, job search, parent deployment. What were the other things you mentioned? Moving. Okay.
Just unpredictability of the situation that we might all be finding ourselves in. Let's see, job search, career trajectory, and building a house. And job search as well.
Did somebody say building a house?
Yes.
Yes.
So that's intriguing and challenging because it ultimately provides joy, but I'm sure it's stressful throughout.
Yeah, but you don't want to think about it for at least the first year after that. That's one of my checklists with building a house. I had to go to the beach for a couple of weeks. Okay. So part about, those are all sort of things that are increasingly in this world fairly typical. So let's talk about the keys to coping and adapting. So one of the first keys is to recognize when you are stressed, when something is happening. So if we look at all of these things, it might have felt obvious that these things were unsettling. On the other hand, since some of those things are, career building is a sort of normal thing. Life always has uncertainties. There's excitement to part of those. Sometimes we don't recognize when the stress really begins. We're aware when it sort of implodes or overwhelms us. So one of the important things is to recognize the physical sensations when you are stressed. In other words, your life tells you, a lot of people will get a cold when they're stressed. Their body's immune system tells them that they're stressed. Other people might have a backache when they're stressed. So part of managing the stresses, the changes in life, is recognizing when they are stressing you. And because they not only do they stress the body, but they also inhibit your ability to think about other things and to think about how you're going to particularly reframe an issue. So one of the other things that's important is to know multiple ways to de-stress your mind and body. So what are some of the ways, if you can get some things in the chat room or to talk about, how do people now, when they're under stress, like maybe getting ready to take an exam or preparing for a presentation for a big meeting, what do people do to prepare themselves to get ready to be at their peak for a particular thing? Is there anything that people can recognize?
I know I do breathing and meditation.
Okay. Any other suggestions from the group?
I try and get a good night of sleep.
If you can slow your mind down to sleep, yes.
Somebody else said deep breathing, a workout to let out the tension, to-do lists.
A good breakfast, a really good breakfast.
I think exercise, deep breathing relaxations, visualizations, music frequently for people is, and not always the same kind of music, is also a way to, because what you want to do is clear your head, slow everything down so that you have an opportunity to think about what you need to do and how you want to go about doing that. Go ahead.
Sorry, I thought you were pausing, but we have some more responses. So some people plan out their calendar task by task. People get outside to clear their head. Some people have happy hour with their friends, even virtually. They pet their cat.
All those are all good things. And part of it is, I used to encourage people to have, if a lot of people would get into reading poetry or listening to a certain kind of music, I would encourage some of my clients to literally have a shelf, a space on their bookshelf to have those things readily available. So you don't have to go search for that CD or that book of poetry or the journal that you write in for those kinds of things, but to have them all together in one place. Because the other problem is when people are stressed, and stress usually leads to trying to work harder or which means you have less time, then the difficulty is taking the time to access those things. So that's the third element, is being able to access those coping mechanisms that you know work for you when you're under stress, when things are changing rapidly. So the physical metaphor that I use with a lot of people is to think about stress as filling up a balloon with energy or air, really. And so we want to be doing things regularly that reduce our stress, the feeling of stress or anxiety, however you feel it. So think about it as you get more stress, the balloon blows up. So you want to do things to keep letting the air out of the balloon. And if you keep accumulating air in that balloon, then it gets the potential for the balloon to explode, which then will obviously create more stress and limit your ability to function. Because all of this is about being prepared to access all of your problem-solving capabilities and resources, and stress has a tendency to cut off your access to those. So the things we talked about, the deep breathing, relaxation, visualizing, physical exercise, music, reading, a lot of people used to answer bubble baths. I don't know that people do that very much anymore. Or hot tubs, years ago, people would say alcohol. No, that's not a great coping mechanism. Or any of those other addictive substances. But I think bubble baths are probably pretty healthy, or hot tubs. So anything that clears your mind and relaxes you, so you have physically relaxed, but you're also relaxing your brain so that when you get ready to think about how do I address whatever this this challenge is and what I have to cope with, whether it's managing refresh on your computer for the vaccines appointments or whatever it is, then you have more of your resources available to you. When I used to recommend pretty regularly this concept of deep breathing relaxation, I would want people to do it 3 or 4 times a day. Most people would look at me a little scant about how they were going to manage that in their day. And it doesn't have to be for a long period of time, but it does need to be, it is much more effective and much more immediate, provides an immediate benefit if you practice it regularly. So if, I suggested 3 or 4 times a day, I was sort of hoping for 2 at least. Because it is a muscle memory phenomenon, so that because the body will seek a natural relaxed state, it's much easier to operate for the body if you're relaxed. So when you take those, if you've been doing that deep breathing relaxation regularly, then when you need to slow yourself down, something's happened at a meeting, you need to, decide how you're going to handle that. So you take that slow rhythmic breath in and out, your body will relax if it's accustomed to doing that. And so you immediately, without, spending 10 minutes doing that, you get the benefit of that. So it's one of the reasons the practice is really important. The other part about the deep breathing relaxation is you can direct yourself in any direction that you want in that. In other words, you can, if you've got something big tomorrow and your mind is racing, you want to be able to slow that down. Tell yourself that you can manage everything tomorrow and you need a deep, relaxing sleep. Then you can do that, keep reminding yourself of that on the exhale and gently go off to sleep. Or if you need to be energized and focused, you can also use that as your suggestion when you come out of the deep breathing relaxation. So it can take you wherever you need to go to be the most effective in any situation. The one caveat is do not use negatives. In other words, don't do this because the unconscious does not hear the negative. So you always want to refrain those in positives. And the unconscious is actually more receptive to suggestions about how you want to be relaxed or focused or energized on the exhale. So as you're talking to yourself, you want to think about those things. And once you've done it a couple of times, it becomes very natural to give yourself those suggestions on the exhale. So we're going to take some time to actually do a little of that right now. So Christina is going to walk us through that.
Well, thanks, Judy. So we are going to do a guided meditation for the next 7 or 8 minutes. So I encourage all of you to get into a comfortable seated position. If you're sitting, put your feet on the floor, plant them firmly into the ground, and sit with a straight, tall back, and stack your head and shoulders, and just feel like you're in alignment. And so now I encourage you to close your eyes and just listen to my breath as I guide us through. And focus on your breathing. And let's take some nice big inhales and exhales together, breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. So let's do that now together, breathing in and out. And sometimes when we release sound on the exhale, it actually helps us release tension that we might not even realize that we're holding on to. So let's try that again together, breathing in and out. Noticing how easily that next breath comes right back in. And let's do one last inhale and exhale together as a group, breathing in and out. And just turn your focus to your natural breathing rhythm. And we're going to do a scan of the physical body to help relax our muscles, soften them. We'll just breathe into each body part as I lead us through. So breathe into your scalp at the top of your head. And then think about relaxing the muscles in your forehead and your eyebrows, softening your eye sockets, getting some slack in your lower jaw, so there's a little space between your upper and lower teeth, and letting your tongue just lie in your bottom jaw. Then breathe into your neck and relax your shoulders, areas where we hold a lot of tension and stress, especially if we're hunched over a computer most of the day. Now let's focus on the breath as it comes in through your nose and fills your lungs. Filling your lungs all the way to the bottom, and then following your breath as it leaves your body. Breathing in again and filling your lungs, the front, the top, the back, and then releasing on the out breath. And focusing on the muscles of your back in the thoracic region, the lumbar region, letting them relax. And relaxing your glutes, your hamstrings. Coming around to the front, relaxing your stomach, your pelvic region. Breathing into your quads and your knees. Relaxing your calves and your shins. And then focusing on your feet, connecting with the earth, as if you have roots growing out of the bottoms of your feet. And feel the weight of your body on your chair, just feeling heavy. And returning your focus to the gentle in and out rhythm of your breathing. Noticing the ebb and flow of your breath. Noticing the rise and fall of your chest with every in and out breath. And just allowing whatever is going on for you during this meditation. Letting your thoughts come and go without any reaction to them. And returning your focus to your breath. We're breathing gently and effortlessly. Noticing how your breathing is probably a little bit slower, a little bit more balanced. Enjoying the silence and enjoying this stillness. Now turn your attention back to your feet on the floor, back to the physical weight of your body. And let's take one last inhale and exhale together as a group, breathing in and out. And bringing some movement to your fingers and toes. And bringing your meditation to a close whenever it feels right for you. And when you're ready, gently open your eyes. Back over to you, Judy.
All right. Well, apparently Spectrum managed to get my internet system working. So it's nice to see all of you.
Nice to see you too.
So how did that all feel? What was comfortable about it? What did you notice? What changes did you notice?
I definitely found myself concerning myself with other things, but I think when I was reminded to like return my thoughts to like my breath, that was very helpful, or to think of my body and how it feels. I think that was helpful. I definitely can see my mind running crazy during meditation. It's been really hard for me to control that, but that's why I think I really appreciate guided meditation. Definitely very helpful to like refocus you when you need it.
Mm-hmm. And the more often you do it, the easier it will be to push those other things out. Um, I we sort of had a dry run. Of course, all the technology worked, but I used to develop this thing called gum on the bedpost overnight. You know, there's all the stories of kids would save their gum, you know, for the next day, gross as that may be. But metaphorically, it works because particularly if you're looking to relax and get a good night's sleep, as somebody mentioned earlier before, you know, an important event or significant decision to be made, your mind is racing 24/7, and that's its job, you know, to do that. But it's not helpful when you want to sleep. So the idea of, again, on that exhale, you know, I'm going to let go of the things that I can take care of tomorrow, the things that I need to do not itemize those, so that your mind, because that's all they want. They want to keep you focused on those things. So the more you can assure your unconscious that I got it under control, even if you don't particularly feel like you do, but you can sort of convince yourself so that, you know, so the metaphor I would use is let's do a gum on the bedpost.
I really enjoyed the last inhale, exhale. It was like a nice coming back. It just felt very, very refreshing.
I really liked when we breathed into different places of our body. I really felt like the tension was relieved in my shoulders and my neck and stuff when I really focused on that.
Like when we were told to like appreciate the stillness, and I was like, it's so quiet, and I felt so like ready to go to sleep. I was like, this is so nice. I like the instructions, so then it stops me from like thinking about other things. I'm like, okay, inhale, exhale to my feet, you know?
I also hold a lot of tension, I think, in my face, and especially like in my eyebrows. I always find like, oh, I glance at myself during classes and I like looks very stressed out, and so that was really good.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. That furrowed brow. Yeah. Oh, that's all really great feedback, everybody.
Yeah, I can see that Judy dropped back off again.
Shucks.
So I'm hoping she will pop back on again. Poor Judy.
Well, I know you guys have your own guided meditation, but if anybody's interested, I do guided meditations every Monday from 4 to 4:30 on Zoom, and you're welcome to join anytime. Some of my fellow class of 91 tridents join, which is fun.
That's awesome. Where can we find a link for that?
Let me see. Oops.
How long do your guided meditations last, Christina?
They last a half hour, like probably 24 minutes or 25 minutes or something like that. Sorry, it's not copying well. Copy, paste, there we go.
Okay, technology strikes again.
And she's back.
And I'm back. So anyway, I worked with this a student who was a big runner, and the Wells campus is really beautiful, very similar to Cornell, right on the lake, and hilly. So she would visualize a run. She would go to the classroom test center early, visualize herself in a run, and then she was already sitting waiting for that blue book to drop on her desk. And it actually improved her grades significantly. So the power of using that kind of visualization to rehearse, I did that with athletes as well, for critical situations in games, really can do a lot to relax yourself and focus yourself on the things that you need to, because in that relaxed state, some of that other stuff that it then intrudes disappears. So then when you're in the actual situation, it actually works. It enables you to tap into your resources effectively. So any other thoughts or reactions that I missed while I was trying to get back in?
Would you like me to go back to the slides again, Judy?
Yeah, let's just look at, because one of the other aspects of preparing yourself for this, life marathon that you're, that we've all embarked on, is to be more flexible and adaptable. So we all sort of know that, but so one of the things I just wanted people to think about is, because I did this with families, particularly young children, if mothers got sick, or parents were deployed, or I had a family where the father did high tension wire work, so he was gone for 2 weeks at a time. So when the father's gone, it changes, it changed the dynamics of the family. So we went about trying to do, what I would call crisis-proofing families. So when there's unexpected changes, it doesn't negatively impact the stability of the family. So thinking on a more personal level, it's fun for kids because we would have them, get dessert first, or wear their clothes inside out, or change seats at the dinner table, just fun things, so that they experience some transition. But as adults, it's a little harder to do that. But I think just important to think about the ways in which you are very routinized about what you do. Now, being efficient and effective is obviously very important, but it can borderline into ritualizing things. And then when you're pressed for time or circumstances don't allow it, it is amazing how much stress that will generate internally. So just, I mention that just so that you can sort of think about, do I slip into being overly demanding of myself and to do things always in the same way, and to just try and mix it up a little bit just so that it sort of increases your flexibility about things. And that leads into really another important concept, and that is understanding your expectations. Albert Ellis used to call it shoulds. At least I think he was the one who did that. And in my work with people, and particularly women, and I haven't found over the almost 50 years that I've been working that has changed much culturally. There's still a lot of expectations for the way in which people need to behave. So I call it know your own shoulds. In other words, there are things, particularly in the 80s, there were women who had to clean their house every day, or they had to dust every day, and egads. So when they started working full time and those kinds of things, how do I continue to do that? Or, some of the student athletes I worked with, when they were on the road, they had to have all their stuff and do things in a certain way. And, there's no way that can really happen. So it's important to know what you expect of yourself. And in terms of shoulds, these are things that I should do to be a good person, or to be productive, or to be liked. And know what those shoulds, what you think the shoulds are for the other people in your life. And when things get intense or stressed or short of time, you need to be able to say, that's a nice thing to do, but I don't have to do that, or I don't have to always do that, to help reduce some of the stress. I was always amazed at, people would live together for maybe 3 or 4 years, get married, and be, separated in a year. And I was always wondering why that happened. And one of the things that would emerge when you're discussing that is the expectations, the shoulds changed. One of the classic examples was what you had to do with your partner's family as a live-in was one thing, and as a married couple, it was different. Or another one was role responsibilities around the house. It was fine to share those things and, divvy them up and rotate them around when they were living together, but not when they got married, because all of a sudden there was these unconscious shoulds about who had to do certain things when that had not been, the expectation earlier. And what was really interesting is, decades evolved, how surprised both men and women were about how some of those old expectations popped up when they sort of least expected them. The other thing that that working with the athletes really taught me about is that next slide, which is goals are good, but they can be problematic. And, one of the things about, most of us at Cornell, we were pretty high achievers, put a lot of pressure on ourselves to perform and to do well. But when you work with athletes, particularly a lot of my work was with tennis players, there's a limit to what they can control on their half of the court. So trying to prepare an athlete for a match, they all want to win. They're all competitive. They're not at a D1 school playing tennis if they aren't competitive. But so everybody's goal was winning, but that wasn't necessarily going to get them where they needed to be. They had to be able to set goals for that match that were within their control. And some of the athletes really picked up on that very quickly. Others didn't. Since my work included performance of any kind, both academic and athletic, there was always this discussion about, well, I want to get an A in this class. And I would say, so you get to give the grades now? Professors don't do that anymore? No, of course, but I want an A. Well, okay, the A is not the goal. The goals are, what are you going to do so that you increase your chances of an A? So always thinking about where you're setting your sights, what your next, benchmark is to achieve. You want to be able to frame those in things that are within your control, because that will make an experience where maybe you don't get that promotion, or you don't win that match, or you only get that B+, but you will be able to look at the things that you did accomplish as success, and that your system of focusing yourself on the things that are within your control, you will find to be empowering in a way that feeling failure does not tend to do. So the one last thing that I want to, which again is a learning from my client population, is what I call to be aware of the takeaway. Years ago, there was a game called Pac-Man. I think maybe it's had a resurgence a little bit. So the little mouth thing went across the screen and gobbled up color or squares or whatever it was. And that's where the metaphor really, or the image for me, came from. And I really look at it as the difference between self-correcting and being self-deprecating, so that the self-correcting is when you've done something that wasn't to your standard, that you sort of reframe that and correct yourself. If you're complimented, do you have a tendency to say, thank you? Or do you say, it was nothing? Or when you've, made an error on a exam, or, some kind of performance issue, are self-critical, dumb, some kind of minimizing effort. The tendency we do that without really realizing it. We sort of, whether it's a cultural issue that we're not supposed to be boasting about ourselves, or whatever all those, sort of issues are. Be aware of those takeaways. I tell this story of a woman I worked with. I was probably in my mid-30s, maybe late 30s, and she was mid-50s. She was not thrilled about having to be in my office, and I don't remember exactly how she got there, but I think it was an EAP referral. Anyway, it was very obvious that she tended to put herself down on a regular basis. So I had asked her to count how many times she did this takeaway thing. And she was not really happy with my suggestion for her homework. But she came back a couple weeks later, and I guess the other thing I said was, if you get to 100 by noon, you can stop. And she looked at me like I was, a smarty. which I probably was a little bit, but it sort of matched her style. Anyway, so she came back a couple weeks later and she said that she hadn't realized how much she did that. And then she told the story that she had taken some special needs kids on a field trip, and some little girl gave her a big hug when she was getting off the school bus after the trip, and the teacher came behind and said, well, she doesn't do that to just anybody. And then my client said, well, it was, and she said, then I heard your voice. She gave me a dirty look and said, I just said thank you. And of course, then I asked her, how did that feel? I couldn't resist. And she said, it felt really good. So, and I think that's a very common thing that we do in very subtle ways. And that changed our relationship and what she was willing to explore. Same thing with athletes, that negative self-talk and how demeaning that is to performance. And I don't care whether it's, the job setting or the athletic field, that kind of self-criticalness can be very limiting and limit your ability to use all your talents and capabilities. But at the same time, we're not always marshaling our resources or using our talents. And so being able to be, going back to that self-coaching, being able to reframe and direct yourself to where you want to go rather than being critical of the past. So, take that and see where that, to be aware. You may find that you could go for years and not get to 100, but unfortunately many of us do that a lot more than we think. So there's just some general thoughts in wrapping up. I'm a big believer in journaling and writing so that if things are running around in your head, put them on a piece of paper, password them on your computer if you're concerned that somebody else might look at them, and just let, as Freud used to talk about, the stream of consciousness, just, write things down, whether it's a plan about how to deal with something, how you feel about something. I think on the slide it talks about making sauce, which again is another metaphor I use of, we're in a world of instantaneous. We should know instantly how we think, feel, or want to act on something. And I don't think that's how we work. Sometimes we don't even know what the issue is right away. So I would encourage people to make sauce, write down just stream of consciousness, and see where that takes you. The metaphor about the sauce comes from the fact that if you make spaghetti sauce, you put in a whole bunch of stuff, but what comes out at the end is different than, it's made up of all the ingredients, but it has a different texture, it has a different form. So sometimes that writing down of things, not with a purpose, there's two aspects to it. One is just to get it out and see what's there. I used to say you could lift the pot and see what's left. Sometimes there's nothing, because if you vent off the energy and the disappointment or anger or frustration about something, there may be nothing left. You just needed to vent that off. There may be something left, but whatever is left is much more manageable than sort of how it went into the pot. But the writing also enables you to know where your thinking has gaps, because when you're talking to yourself or thinking things through, it's not so easy to recognize where the gaps are. Obviously, most people know about doing that when making decisions. I think one of the other lessons I learned as an executive was knowing when I just needed to vent about something and when I'm ready to strategize, and that the people who might be good just letting me blow off steam and venting may not be the same people that will help with the strategy. And conversely, I had a friend I called one day who we had worked through a number of issues. She worked in the same community I did. There was always some issues for women at that time working in a male-dominated community. And I invited her to lunch. When I was ready to vent, I was not ready to problem solve. It was not a good, and we had a nice lunch, but it was not a good outcome because I wasn't ready to do what she was best to, she was one of my go-to people for strategy. So recognizing what you need and who can do what so that you're accumulating, people in your life who can be there for the different aspects of troubleshooting. So I apologize for all the technological difficulties and the challenges of that, but do you have any questions or comments?
This
is
really
Lisa.
Oh, go for it, Lisa. You go.
I can share a comment. During the pandemic, it's been really hard to vent. I've usually vent with girlfriends, but currently I'm here with my husband all the time. And he doesn't really quite get the concept of just venting. He wants to problem solve. And it's like, no, that's not what I want, not what I need.
That really is a gender issue. That a difference between men and women, and men don't feel any satisfaction as a general rule unless they're problem solving.
I know. It's like, we're smart, we can handle it, we can figure it out.
I know. Just in case we get disconnected, I'm going to stay my cell phone connection here. One of my best stories about that is a step family that I worked with. It was a his and hers. I think they had 6 kids between them, 4 of whom were teenagers, 3 of whom were teenage girls. Needless to say, and the mother was not the warmest person going, but the father was. And he was an industrial repairman, days before cell phones, all that kind of stuff. He was a phenomenal listener. But this poor man was trying to solve problems for 4 teenagers, 3 of whom were teenage girls. He was not meeting with a lot of success. So the homework assignment was just listen. Just listen. He's like, well, that's not going to do anything.
I'm sure.
So I said, well, we've had some success with some other things, so why don't you give it a try? So he came back and he said, that was really easy. And I said, oh, did you notice anything else? And he said, well, yeah, they came back for the second half. They came back for the problem solving. And then we had these great talks because he was really an incredible father and stepfather. So yes, there are people who don't feel like they've really been helpful until they've solved the problem for you. So wait till you find someone else to do the listening and then go back to them for the problem solving.
He always says, go to your girlfriends for that.
Right.
He knows.
Yeah, I don't know that that's a gender issue that's going to change really soon. I don't know. Other thoughts, comments?
I just wanted to say thank you so much for this. This is so impactful and amazing. I had so many revelations that happened. The biggest one for me was setting goals. I feel like all through elementary school, through high school, we had to set goals every single semester. That was one of our assignments, but they were all rather than what you said, set goals for what you should do, not what you should achieve. And they were all achievement goals. And anytime that I either met that goal or worked really hard and didn't meet that goal, I would always just go on a downward spiral after because I had nothing more to work for or because I hadn't hit that goal. Mm-hmm. And now I'm just oh, I'm not going to cry. That's gross. But just making goals of what you should be able to do. Like, I know I can achieve the goals to do things rather than like overall, like bigger goal, if that makes sense. Yeah.
And there is a correlation between if you do those things, if you do all the reading, you write your outline for the paper the way they taught you to, you get the draft done more than the night before, those things connect. But you're right, you still have that sense of accomplishment for I set out to do this. And then the takeaway is, in the positive sense of takeaway, what do I need to do for the next set that will get me further towards where I want to go? So thank you for that feedback. That's great. Anything else?
Yeah, I just want to know if you had any maybe like affirmations or like, short things that I could sit and meditate on and use in the future.
Well, one of the ones that I am lovable, desirable, capable, and worthy because I am. Not because I do, but because I am. I call it a lethal dose of the Protestant work ethic. When your value is a function of what you do. There's Catholic and Jewish guilt, and we all sort of know what that is, or however we interpret all of that. But I think the lethal dose of the Protestant work ethic is in the same category and can be limiting as opposed to empowering. So I wanted people to put a 4x6 card on the bathroom mirror, and they had to do it before they brush their hair, wash their face, brush their teeth, whatever, so you're in that natural state of arising in the morning. I am lovable, desirable, capable, and worthy because I am. So try that one on and see how that works.
Thanks so much. That's such a great one.
Okay. We're gonna sort of review some things about the Delta links, but we can stay on sort of after the if the people want to have a little more conversation or back and forth, we can do that. There's no time limit. So Christina, you want to take over and talk about Delta links?
I'd be happy to. Yeah, thanks.
Precursor, let me just say that when I wrote the newsletter to the alums to say, things need to change. We need to be able to do something for the current collegians, so they really can feel the depth of being an alpha beta. I hoped we would come to this point, but I never really imagined that we would have this kind of thing going with all the things that she's going to talk about. So from as a person and somebody who got involved in House Corporation a couple years ago, this is just really exciting for us all. So thank you for letting us be part of your collegiate experience.
Absolutely. Thanks, Judy. So a bunch of us created Delta Links to basically create all these programs and experiences for Alpha Betas. So we as Alpha Betas are creating it for all the rest of the Alpha Betas out there, and that's the undergrads and the alums. And so Delta Links is a program that focuses on networking and mentoring and personal and professional development. And so tonight we just experienced one of the programs. We really want Delta Links to be a way for all of you as undergrads and all of you as alums to engage and just have another way to interact. And another goal was for us to bridge the gap between all the generations. So as a part of the steering committee for Delta Links, I got to meet Judy and Debbie from the classes of the 70s, and I got to meet Emily, class of 2021, and everybody in between, and older and younger. And it's just been amazing. And then I've reconnected with other people that I already knew. And so it's wonderful. And so we hope to foster that for all Alpha Betas. And the other cool thing was, I know Emily and Emery were able to talk about Delta Links during new member recruitment. And we think that's pretty cool because that is a really nice feature to offer to everybody. So that was pretty neat. So what does Delta Links offer? We offer mentoring. We had over 80 alums sign up to participate in this program, and we are now in the process of finalizing a mentor directory so that you actives can go into the directory and take a look at everybody's profile and figure out with whom you'd like to connect. And it's going to be a fluid program, and we are about to launch that probably in the next month or so. So just be on the lookout for more information about the mentor directory. We're really excited about that. We have a lot of programs in the works. So Judy just did hers tonight, and then we've got another one coming up on networking, which I'm actually leading, and that is on March 30th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So information will be forthcoming on that. But we have other programs on interview skills and finding the right fit and real life help in terms of budgeting and saving and investment. And so we actually want to get more ideas from all of you. So feel free to send them our way. And then we also have the Pansy Pal program, which has been so much fun so far. What we've done is we have gotten a pool of undergrads and a pool of actives, undergrads and alums, and we've matched them one-on-one. And it's kind of like an old-fashioned pen pal. The alum reaches out to the undergrad and maybe sends an email or a text or a card or maybe a little care package in the mail, and basically fosters this lovely relationship. And I've thoroughly enjoyed it myself, and I hope all of the folks that are participating have too. I know there's a Pansy Pal match on the screen here, so which is nice. So that's been a fun program as well. So if you're interested in signing up to either be a Pansy Pal or receive a Pansy Pal, or if you would like to officially get your name in the form for Delta Links itself so that we can make sure that you're getting all the communications, go to our TriDel webpage. So it's cornelltrideltaalumni.com/delta-links, and all of the links are right there, but I can actually also copy them and stick them in the chat. Except I just closed that out by mistake. So, anyhow, so our programs that are coming up next are networking, interviewing, and personal finance. So we hope to see all of you and more there. And you undergrads, please help us spread the word to the rest of your fellow chapter members, because we're really excited to meet as many of you as possible.
All right, so that concludes the main part of the performance presentation, rather. So, as I say, if you want to stay on for a little while, we're certainly game to do that. Otherwise, you have a free evening, right? You don't have to be, studying hard this evening, because you've got 2 full days to do that. So, but just as a House Corporation president, please follow through with all the social distancing and all those good rules. So, yeah, exactly.
Thank you guys so much. This was really, really an amazing learning experience. I'm so excited to also see all your faces. It's really cool to connect with you guys. That being said, I'm going to go finish because we're doing continuous open bidding this semester, so I have lots of dates to set up. But really appreciate.
As a former Rush chairman, I understand that.
Yeah, I feel like my hair is on fire all the time. But regardless, it's been very exciting. So hopefully we'll just have more and more current members to, get Pansy Pals to match up with. So very exciting. But I really appreciate you guys. I hope you have a great evening.
Oh, thank you. Same to you.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, thank you guys. It was great.
That was fun.
Thank you. Thanks for being a part of it.
so much.
All right.
I want to say hi to Debbie. Hi, Debbie.
Oh.
It's nice to see you.
I have
I've been
a
writing
for Christine.
How do we find out about the Pansy Pals and things?
Just go to that Delta Links page on the Cornell alumni, cornelltrideltaalumni.com. And there's a link right there where you can just click on that, fill out the form, and we'll get you signed up with one.
I really did sign up. I filled out the form. I did sign up. but I haven't heard anything.
Oh,
That's why I thought this was this call, but it wasn't.
oh, I'll go back and look. I'll follow
Make
up.
sure you get one.
I will follow up.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I didn't do something technologically correct. But
I will
it's
be
certainly
in touch.
possible.
I will be in touch. Did you have a question, Molly?
Yeah. So we actually have a chapter-wide guided meditation happening
Cool.
on the 11th this week, and I was just wondering if you had any resources for us that we could use to go through this, just because I definitely can't lead one. But if you have any resources of like maybe videos or something that we could play.
Oh, so somebody so you don't have a designated leader yet for that?
We don't have a leader, no. I was thinking about just possibly playing a video during it.
Well, what time is it taking place? I'd volunteer my time to lead it if that would be helpful.
Oh my gosh, that'd be amazing. It's 6 p.m. on Thursday.
Yeah, why not? And how long is it supposed to last?
It can last as long as you would want.
Oh, I'll put my information in the chat and we can chat offline. Okay, that's fun.
Awesome.
Thank you. Of
Well, thank you so much.
course.
And that's with the rest of the girls in the house? Yeah.
Yep, and the current members, yeah. And then the new members as well. It's our new member period right now, so we're trying to have events every day to like integrate them into the chapter. So that's one of them.
Oh, I love that. Great idea.
Fun.
So am I seeing a house or where do people live?
This is College Town.
College town.
College Town. Sorry.
No. Hey, I lived in College Town. I liked it.
Well, we have 27 living in the house this semester, 26 or 27 living in the house this semester.
Is everybody in a single room? How's this working?
Well,
No.
in
Yeah.
New York, you treat it as a pod of living together. So, and we don't have any triples. So it's only singles or doubles. And a lot of, I don't know, when I was there, the rooms downstairs on the main floor, none of those were bedrooms. They were date rooms, a hostess room. And now I guess two or three of them are bedrooms. And we had in the fall semester, the room right next to the bathroom on the main floor was
The phone room.
well, the old phone room was for if somebody was feeling sick but didn't meet the COVID thing, we had a room to be able to separate people because we just didn't know what was going to be what. So, but I have a feeling that's occupied now. I don't know for sure.
Yeah, isn't that funny that we used to have a phone room? Can you even imagine?
That is funny, actually.
Well, yes, somebody had to be on hostess duty to
Yeah, we had a host.
phone and to let the gentleman callers in.
Call for Molly. Molly, come on down.
And
Yeah.
we actually had a dog living in the house my junior and senior year. Junior year, he didn't have permission to live there, but senior year, he had national permission to live there because we were the only sorority not broken into my junior year, so he got permission to live there the next year. I don't know how that all worked, but if you had a new gentleman caller coming, you let the hostess know, because George would not let the guy walk down the front walk. If he didn't know you, you did not get to the front door.
That's awesome.
We were his girls, and if he didn't know you, forget it. So we had to rescue a few guys from the front walks.
There's a dog on our most recent composite.
Oh, yeah.
Her name is Willa, but her nickname is Bill. So it's just a picture of Bill with the name Bill underneath. And one of the current, she graduated last year. It was her dog.
The
So
dog.
she brought Bill to her composite photo taking.
Oh,
But
I
she's
don't think George
very
ever made the composite.
yeah. Bill is a very chubby French
Chubby.
bulldog, so it's kind of funny to have her there.
How cute.
Yeah, they are really popular, French bulldogs. I don't
Yes.
really quite get it.
They're all born by C-section because their heads are too large.
Really?
I didn't
Yes.
know
I didn't know that.
that.
Wow.
Or, you know.
That's funny.
I have to hop off. My housemates are waiting for me to watch The Bachelor. So
Of course.
Very important.
very big commitment on a Monday night. But thank you so, so much again. This was amazing.
Oh,
Bye.
good.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, Debbie.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
We have to
I have
hop
to
off.
drop off too. Judy, this was so informative and so relaxing. Chrissy, thank you for the meditation. Apparently Matthew's been meditating. My son, 20-year-old son, has been meditating every day. But I will partake in that more. Between
Yay.
him and
Oh,
you,
good.
I'll be, learning
Thank
how to
you.
breathe.
I'm glad you came.
Yeah, thank you.
Denise, do I remember that you're a social worker also?
Nope,
No? Okay.
there was another one, Elizabeth, maybe her.
Oh, okay. Somebody was on one of the other calls.
Yeah. Yeah.
Joe still on? No, Joe left. So I was always in sales.
Oh, okay. All right. Sounds good.
Not working now. All right, well, good night, everybody.
Good night.
Nice to see you.
Good night, all.
Bye.
Bye,
Nice.
Lisa. I'll be in touch. That's weird.
Good.
Yeah.
I agree. Good night.
Good
Bye.
night.
Night.